I once again welcome you to the 32nd National Conference of Indian Association for Social Psychiatry. It is my honor to introduce the chairpersons for today's plenary session, chaired by Professor S.K. Mattu, Professor in Department of Psychiatry, Adesh Medical College and Hospital, and Professor Debasish Basu, Professor and Head of Department of Psychiatry, PGI Chandigarh. Our distinguished plenary speaker is Mr. Siddhartha Wig, who will speak on the idea of home, how physical space shapes our mental health. I now kindly request our decorated chairpersons to introduce the presenter.
Okay, I think we should start now. Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And it is my pleasure to introduce the speaker for this very unique, I would say, a one of its kind talk, invited lecture by Siddhartha Wig, who, uh, who is an architect. So there are two talks in this entire social psychiatry conference which were not directly by mental health professionals, okay, because otherwise they are mostly by psychiatrists or psychiatric social worker or clinical psychologist, etc. So this is the second one. The first talk we have heard in the morning in lecture theater 2 by Siddharth's daughter Purvai, who is here now, and this is the second talk. So these are quote unquote non-professional, which is a shame because that's a misnomer. Obviously he's a professional. Okay, so I don't know why we always think that professional means only psychiatrists. So anyway, never mind. Siddharth, other than being a good friend and acquaintance for many years, uh, is an architect. As you can see, he has given a very short and sweet and succinct CV, which is nice, you know. So you can always read it. So I'm not going to read it out. But this is something because Siddhartha Wig also happens to be the son of our guru's guru, as we call him, Professor NN Wig, on whose name the oration will be there day after tomorrow on 16th September. And there again, you'd be coming to attend that session. Professor Mohan Isaac will be delivering the oration this time. So we have heard in the morning one session about the trauma processing through an artist's perspective, which was, as I clearly said, that was clearly, to me at least, that was the best session. But then we said that we have not yet heard Siddharth. So this is going to be on spaces and how they affect mental health. We now, and I can't think of a better, a more suitable topic for this particular theme of this conference, which is social determinants of mental health. Social, the word social is a very broad word. Social is not just family, okay, not just community. Social is actually socio-ecological and everything that surrounds us, right? Everything that surrounds us, which also includes space, very importantly, space and water and, you know, green things around, etc., climate, everything. So without any further ado, let us hear from Siddhartha Wig himself about what he has to say. Siddhartha Wig, please. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Basu, Dr. Matru. Thank you all, Dr. Murthy, Dr. Avasthi. It means a lot for all of you to be here, Dr. Bhagat. It's not going to be a regular talk. I am going to take you through what is my idea of home. When Dr. Basu called up and said, would you like to talk about something, the conference is on social psychiatry, and I got excited because I had been discussing this with him for a long time about what physical space actually means in terms of our mental health. I'm an architect practicing for the last 30 odd years. Our firm has done about 500 plus finished projects of all scales, from small residences to large campuses. It's always fascinated me as to how physical space affects mental health, but I'm trying to narrow it down to what the idea of home really is. I'm sure you're familiar. चल नहीं रहा है नहीं वो उधर से no, they did it from there, I couldn't do it from here. Sorry. You're familiar with perhaps the most famous saying about buildings, and as said by Winston Churchill when the House of Commons was bombed in 1941, and he's making a plea for the building to be redone in exactly the same way that it was originally built. And he said, we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. It's a very, very powerful statement, and I often think of it when I am designing a building. So when I started thinking about the idea of home, the first thing that came to my mind was home is where the heart is. And it's a saying that we often use. And I tried to trace the origin of this phrase, and it goes back to the 1st century AD. Pliny the Elder is attributed with having said this when he came back from one of his victorious Roman campaigns. Some of the other things that came to mind is that when you're looking at a home, what is the feeling that you're getting? And the words that came to my mind were that it's predictable and it's secure. And these were things that attributed to what a feeling of being home is. Also, it's that transition point. It's that connection you have between who you are and the world. So these were the 3 basic starting points I started off with. And I looked at home is not only for us. Wherever you are, there is a home that you can be connected to, a home that you will miss. Is home a physical space? Is it a corner in a room? Is it the bed on which I'm sleeping? Is it the room itself that I'm calling home? Is it a physical outer boundary, a house that I feel is home? Is it a neighborhood? Is it a city? Or is the space larger? Am I calling my country my home? Or can I think even larger and say that it's my planet that is my home? And the moment I started looking at all these possible ways to interpret what a home is, I started looking at, is it more than just physical space? Is it an idea of home that we tend to look at? And what is that idea then? If it's not just a physical space, is it the people that make it home? Is it memories? Is it rituals that I would do in a particular space, in the boundary of that physical space that I am wanting to call home? The Greeks had a word for it, and topophilia, as the breakup of the word suggests, is love for a space. Often it has cultural determinants also. There is a cultural identity that people tend to look at and go back to, which makes them associated or makes them want to look at that physical space in a particular way. That's me. And the year is 1965. And in this house that I grew up in. And it feels kind of nostalgic to have Dr. Baku and Dr. Walia here because they were the neighbors when I was growing up here. This is the house number 66, sector 24. Of course, when we moved in, genre still had the J attached to the name, so it used to be 6J6 before it became 66. We were opposite what is now the PGI Community Center. But when I moved in, all that land was barren. There were actually hyenas that we would hear at night. There were ample snakes and rodents and mongoose and animals, and that's where we would go and play. But I want to tell you that I'm 61 years old today. Majority of my dreams are still in this house. The people may be different, the people may be contemporary people in my life, but the physical space around which my dreams are is still that house. And my memories go back to small, small things. I remember my mom telling me that that window that you see, the first robbery that we had in the house, this is sometime in the 60s, the robber came in through that window. And she woke up in the morning, saw that the kitchen was in disarray, walked around, and the thief really couldn't take all what he wanted to and kept dropping bartans all along the ground till he jumped over the fence. And after that, actually, they started putting grills. Till that time, there was no idea. This house, that's me being very possessive. It's probably my birthday. I've been given a gift. This is the boundary wall on which I would run. This is the place where I grew up. And most of what is me today, I still attribute to experiences that I've had living in that space. Is there a difference between house and home? A lot of time a client comes to us and says, you know what, we want you to build our house. That's a physical structure. At what stage does a house become a home? Yes, it's an abode to live in, but how do you make somebody feel comfortable in that space? And the word I've used here is to opportunely live. It's not about surviving. It is about being able to live yourself fully in that space that finally makes it a home. It's not just brick and concrete and mortar that make the space. It is about memories also. And it is about how we live that we make these memories. And I want to look at memories in a little more detail because not all memories are happy. Is people what makes the change from a house to a home? I've often wondered about this because for me, people who are living in that space contribute tremendously into making it alive. It's also about sharing feelings. And these feelings are being shared with people. And that is what is contributing to the shift that is happening. It's not only the memories that are being created, it's not only feelings that are being shared, but it's also what you are doing with other people. So you're building these bonds, you're building these togetherness with people who are living there. You're caring about them. For me, most of my memories of my childhood are happy memories. And my children often question that and they say, either you have a very selective memory or you had an amazing childhood that for us is difficult to actually comprehend. But when I look back, I actually have little to no memory that can even be classified as unhappy or traumatic. All of you are familiar with Maslow's theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you're looking at how human beings move up, starting from basic physiological needs, going up to safety, love, belonging, esteem, and then on to something which is self-actualization. And I've loved this diagram and I've looked at it many times and I feel, why cannot it be applied to a building? For a house to become a home, aren't these the steps that that physical space also is supposed to take? So if Maslow's hierarchy was applied to the idea of home, so we're looking at safety and security. And why wouldn't that sense of safety, which is coming from a physical space, be there? Yes, a well-designed house, when it becomes a home, will have reduced stress levels, will have reduced anxiety, will have ways in which you'll be able to deal with the happy feelings there. On the other hand, if it is not there, then conversely, it could become a negative space also. As identity and selfhood, I'm going back to it that I still feel most of who I am today is because of where I was born, how I grew up, who I grew up with, what my parents thought would be a way to bring me up. A lot of things that in today's world are considered trauma, for me were interesting steps to explore. I had 48 kids in my class, in class 4. I know that because I stood 48th in class. My mother, in her wisdom, thought I need to repeat class. And most of the neighbors, all the advisors to my dear mother said, that's crazy. Can you imagine the psychological effect it will have on this child? Repeating a class. And here I was thinking, जो किताबें पिछले साल पढ़ी थी वही दोबारा पढ़नी है. So कुछ तो याद है, so that makes it good. Plus, I had 48 friends last year. They are anyway going to remain my friends. And now I have 48 more to make friends with me. So for me, it was a win-win situation. So I'm saying it's not only the physical space, but what makes the space alive, what gives you that feeling of security, of safety, and in my case, say identity and selfhood also, of who we are and how that comes out in that physical space. I would do absolutely crazy things in that house, and I'll take you through more photographs also. I remember sitting on the terrace one day and looking at my brother. We were supposed to be doing our homework. Mom had been tired, so she says, I'm going to go in and take an hour's rest. Can you please continue the homework? And I said, yes. And she said, you're the older one, you'll take responsibility. I said, yes. Mom goes in, and I look at my brother and I say, let's have a plane flying competition. So I take my exercise notebook, tear a page, make a plane, stand by the edge, throw it, it goes, he tears one, throws it. I say, I can do better than you. I make another one, I can make sleeker. And then all the textbooks paper finished. Then we started with the textbooks. After the notebooks were finished, we started with the textbooks. All the books in our bag had become paper planes, and by the time my mom got up, the whole garden was white. But we didn't get scolded for things like this. It was all these memories around the house that made it so special. If that house or that home is taken away from you, that separation, that losing a home, that could come for any number of reasons, could also lead to a negative impact. So there could be an identity crisis as a result of taking away of that home. As I was saying, not all homes are healthy. I was extremely lucky. But there could be environments which are not safe. There could be incidents that have happened in that physical space which make you associate a negative feeling there. And it gets very difficult right through childhood to be able to dissociate, to not look at that space as safe then. So the conclusion in that is that it's not only the presence of a home, it's the quality of home also that makes a difference here. As an inner sanctuary, in a lot of traditions in spirituality, you will have a sense, a message that is coming across, that the true home is actually inward. And if you can access that inner home, that feeling of safety is there, and that's supposed to be an aspirational response to life there. Whatever is happening outside could be lived through, but what you're trying to do, what you're aspiring to do, is a deeper inner home. That's my brother, and my dear father. Behind is Dr. Bidwai's house, and I'm sure the children are laughing because I'm going to tell a story about how Billu Bidwai had a billy. And the tree that you see at the back, there were these poplar trees, and we would be playing cricket, and the cat would climb up. And every evening, all the birds would be flying back home. In the morning, they would fly in one direction, and in the evening, just at sunset, they would be flying back. And this cat would be perched on top of this poplar tree waiting, and would jump and catch a bird and come down. And that's such a vivid memory I have of that space. The tree at the back, I'll show you more photographs of that. It was a huge house. We were gardening in that house. All the staples were grown there, from aloo, pyaz, even corn was grown there. I did my basic high jump, long jump over there. I would dig and put sand in there, over there. 1971 war, I remember building trenches there with my dear father telling me how actually to do it. That's me and my brother on top of a tree. The one on the end you see is Dr. Chug's house. And there was a time when I didn't like both the Chug boys, and I was trying to get at them. How do I do it? So these were lovely kite flying days. So I would have my kite flying, which is, if the wind was correct, going over their house. And I had tied a little plastic bag under the kite with a second string. And I would collect garbage and put it into that plastic bag. And when it would reach on top of his house, I will pull the other string so that the garbage would... And it gave such a feeling of greatness that, what I have been able to achieve. I literally remember each and every brick. I remember behind which door there was a coiled up snake lying one day. I remember when the floods came and the water came to what level. I remember when my grandfather was unwell, how I was teasing him by blowing into a balloon, hiding under the bed and leaving the balloon till it went all over, and he would get confused and I would get a good laugh. Memories. That's the house in my childhood. This is the lawn in the front, that little champa tree. Those 3 windows that you see are from the dining room. That's the kitchen door. That little veranda is where we would spend most of our time. The top terrace, and I still remember whatever concrete they had cast, it had a little slope, but we kind of ignored it in those days. After my father recovered from his brief illness for a bit in the spring of 2018, I was very keen to take him back to that house. The house where I was born, the house where he actually moved in when he came to this city. That's the number. At that time, the wall used to be small. Now the wall is much higher. And he was very nostalgic. He didn't really know how to react. So he went and he just sat in the lawn there. And I remember that in this veranda, in that window on the right, behind the bed, is where the Grundig radio was placed, where I heard India versus Pakistan World Cup 1975 commentary by Jasdev Singh, when in the last moment we scored a goal and we won. I remember hanging from this tree. This is the same champa tree that you saw in the earlier photograph. I remember my father wearing an olive sweater, coming back after a hard PGI day during winter at lunch, picking up a orange, peeling it, eating and throwing the seeds into the garden. Memories of each and every space in that house that made it into a home. Then I started exploring the idea of how has home been looked at in different societies, in different cultures, and are we, as with an Indian mindset, looking at it in a different way, in a unique way? The ontology of what the word means and what it means to live in that. There is a lot of feeling among philosophers that to live, to be alive, is to dwell. And where do you dwell? You dwell in a physical space. And that physical space is where one finds grounding, where one finds reason for existence. This is the place where you get rooted in the world. So there's a lot of talk about this, about being alive means to be able to dwell and everything that goes around it. This is something which we've touched earlier, but something for me has a lot of importance. In this book, The Poetics of Space, he's looking at that there are intimate spaces that actually shape our consciousness. I remember taking a class here at Chandigarh College of Architecture where I was looking at home as an idea where you're feeling safe. And one of the girls, architects, gave a submission which really shook me, because I asked them to draw a space that they felt comfortable in, that they felt that that was secure. And she drew the inside of a cupboard. And she said, in my childhood, that was the only safe place that I would run away, get inside a cupboard, close myself in there, and that was my safe space. Another girl said she drew a staircase going up to a terrace. And I asked her, what is this? She said, only the boys were allowed up to the terrace. The girls were not allowed to go up that staircase. And one day, when nobody was looking, I ran up. And for me, that feeling of freedom, she said, I still associate it with this staircase and this house and going up to the terrace by myself, doing something that I wasn't allowed. But my favorite story in this is Amrita Pritam from her autobiography, Rasidi Ticket, where she mentions that as a young girl, she's afraid at night. She's sleeping out in the open and she's afraid. And she tells her father, what do I do? And her father gives her a mantra and says, you repeat this mantra and there'll be a wall all around you, a physical wall, and you'll be safe inside. And she loves the idea. So every night while sleeping, she recites this mantra, there is this wall around and she's safe, she sleeps perfectly. But then, she's growing up, she's a young adolescent, and there's this boy in the lane that she likes. And they're now exchanging glances and she wants to be friends with him. And now she's afraid that if, while sleeping, she reads the mantra and there is this wall around her, then that boy cannot visit her at night in her dreams. What a dilemma, what to do. So then she thinks about it and she says, you know what? What if I think about him when I lie down? Then he's with me. And after that, if I speak the mantra, then the wall is around the two of us. And both of us can be safe in this space for the whole night. So I love this idea of how we engage with not only physical space, but with the idea of physical space. And how a lot of these intimate spaces shape our consciousness. So home is not only lived, it's also imagined, as the example with Amrita Pritam shows. But you can only build those dreams if there is a certain stability, there is a certain safety in that physical space. A lot of people believe that their identity comes from this idea of home. And Edward Said is talking about people who have been removed from their home. And there is so much of it happening today. Gaza, Palestine is going through so much of existential angst because people are being removed. And if you are removed from your home, if you don't have a home, so the question is, do you really exist? I love this last sentence, that a home is constructed in memory as much as in physical space. So people who have been removed from their homes have a memory, have an idea, and they build on that. They actually live in that for years, maybe the rest of their lives. My father, when he came back into India, 1947, during partition, from Gujranwala, the idea that there was this home, that we had a whole lane named after us, that we were the landlords, we were the people around whom the city moved. And they came back with only a set of keys. And that keys were then nicely decorated, put on a frame and put on the wall. And when we would question them, we were told, look at the size of the keys. If the size of the keys was so much, can you imagine the size of the lock? And if you can imagine the size of the lock, can you imagine the size of the तिजोरी जिसके ऊपर ये ताला लगा होगा? और अगर इतनी बड़ी तिजोरी होगी तो सोचो उसमें कितना कुछ हम रखते होंगे. But they only came back with the keys. But he went back in 1982 to Gujranwala, to that lane, to that house, to the room where he was born. And for him, that was quite an emotional experience. And as I'm saying, till that time, all those years, he had been just keeping that memory of that house. I'm trying to look at the idea of home, not limiting it to a physical space, not limiting it to a space where you are born, where you live, you're brought up, but to the larger idea. I'm now trying to explore it philosophically also as to what exactly this idea of home could mean. A lot of you will be familiar with Hannah Arendt and her Jewish ancestry and her use of the term banality of evil. But she says a home is a place where our existence is acknowledged. And I think that's important. If we feel that we are alive, if we feel that we are living, if we feel that our thoughts are accepted, we feel alive in a way. And trying to look at it in a larger paradigm of what makes us alive here. So it's also a political category then, and it is also something that gives us recognition. At this time, the fight is, should Palestine be given recognition or not? And if Palestine is not recognized, who is a Palestinian? How do we come to terms with this? Can we really be alive if we don't have a home? If we don't have a place that we can call home? These are questions that have, and thanks to Dr. Basu, thanks to me wanting to explore this, I've come up with so many of these questions that I don't really have answers to, but at least the questions are there now. And this is something that, as a solution, a lot of times, if you don't have a home, then what do you do? What do you resort to? And sometimes you have a home that's not a happy home. What do you resort to? And you're looking at the inside. You're looking at a spiritual answer to all this. And over the years, you have people who have looked at how the higher existential idea, the aspiration is to reach a place where you are truly comfortable. And that then is a true home. But it's argued, so that is more a mystical tradition, that is more a spiritual way of looking at it. But more contemporary sociologists, economists say, no, that's not right. A home is something that's more physical, that's more social, economic. It's something that is built into a more capitalistic way of looking at the world. But then I started exploring this, and this is a recent thought, that contemporary modernity is not leading to static models. We are looking at fluidity. Things are not what they are. Things are growing. Things are evolving all the time. So why shouldn't the idea of home also change with that? And Mr. Bauman actually uses a term called liquid modernity, where things are flowing, things are not constant. And therefore, when we are looking at, it's not something which is fixed, it's not something which is static, it's not something which is constant. It could be something that is moving, it could be something that's transient also. And I think this is a very interesting idea of looking at what a home is or could be. So, to sum up everything that I'm saying. When there is a healthy home, it nurtures good mental health, and I think that is what all of us are aspiring to be, to be in that place. But on the contrary, when things are not good, then physical space itself is contributing a lot to our mental health not being in the right place. It leads to anxiety, to stress, and it manifests itself in other ways which often require help then. So home is both a material and a psychological necessity. And I think a lot of times we tend to miss that. A lot of times a home is looked at only as something that is physical, some place that we go back to at the end of the day, a place where we can take off our shoes, but it's important that we feel comfortable. It's a place that we can call home. It's a place that we go back to as home. I love the paradox, the dichotomy in this, where it's concrete and it is symbolic. It's personal as well it is collective. And it's stable as well it is fluid. So it's not a constant thing. It's also something that's evolving. It's also something that has to be looked at in the duality that it presents. Just a reminder, we only have one of these, and we need to be mindful of that. Thank you.
On a philosophical note, time and space are also said to be illusory. Yet, when we all exist, we grow up in a home, and over time, a home grows inside us. And we carry it wherever we go with us, from one city to another, from one country to another. And it has a dual role of give and take with what you refer to as our mental state. When we are distressed, we remember our homes and things related to that home. And when you're happy, same thing happens. And there are times when we have a new home, so to say, structurally, then we recall our old home and memories that go with it. Thank you for bringing up these interesting issues. I am sure people will have some questions for you on this issue. Yes, please.
Extremely provoking lecture. Congratulations. The only thing Donald Trump is doing good is ordering that all new buildings will be made in the pattern of the previous buildings. Otherwise, he's making divided states of United States. Secondly, fluidity, mental fluidity. You interpreted it different at your transitional age. Same memories can become happy, traumatic, neutral. And there's a philosophy of Chardi Kala in Punjabi, while being in the world, but also out of it. You had a very good set of parents. We would have got a good thrashing for destroying our notebooks and textbooks. Stable fluidity, personal, collective, concrete symbol, great one. Thank you.
I have many questions, but I'll limit myself because I love the presentation. And of course, the pictures took me back to the time when Dr. Wig was there and when he selected me for the department. I have very beautiful memories of him. The question is that I mean, we were talking about big homes. So now after retirement, I'm working for some social causes also, and I'm thinking of those colonies which have been uprooted. Recently, you heard in Chandigarh, the colonies were uprooted, and my heart goes out to those people who lost their homes and they were asked to vacate, and the concept of homelessness. You know, what must have gone through those people and the children, and where they used to play and where they used to sit and sleep and eat, you know. Suddenly one day they had to pick up all their bag and baggage and shift to a new place. So my thoughts, you know, I mean, the psychological effects it had on the family and the children. The other thought I said I have is that the more older we grow, the more we remember our childhood days. This happens, I have seen, now that I am growing older and I remember my childhood more than my middle years. My mother, when she died, she was 93. And she had a dream of her Pakistan house. And when she died, her legs was not moving, like the legs had gone, so I don't know what you call them, but she wouldn't move, and she was just, you know, the maid would pick up the leg and put it aside. But 10 days before she died, she had a dream that she jumped from one chabara to the other. You remember, you understand what chabara was, you know. And I was wondering, you know, like the memory was going back to her Pakistan days, the door, the lock that you were talking about, and the house, and the, you know, the play area, and the memories. So as we are growing older, and those memories are very pleasant, and also, you know, the previous memories, the childhood memories become very, very important, and we remember them very vividly and clearly. There are a lot of thoughts of mine on the issue. I really enjoyed your talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. On the idea of displacement, we also tend to have a selective memory. We are very happy living in this lovely planned city of Chandigarh. What we perhaps don't realize is that scores of villages were uprooted for the making of the city. And they were asked to move into a certain area. When second phase of Chandigarh came up, they were again asked to move. Now they've been asked to move yet again. For anything that we are calling development, when Bhakra Dam was made, a number of villages had to be submerged. It's supposed to be the cost of development. We often don't look at that displacement. But I did mention in one of the slides that moving out of your home could have a long-term negative effect also. But coming back to your point of textbooks being torn and not being scolded for it, I'm reminded of another incident. I used to be very curious, and that physical space of that home allowed me to be curious, to be doing things that I would perhaps in any other family or in any other city perhaps would not have been allowed. I remember, this is sometime in the early 70s, aluminium bags had just been introduced, and they were a big vogue at that time, and all of us wanted those aluminium bags. And inside the aluminium bag were all my books and textbooks, and I come back from school, get off the bus, and I'm curious, what will happen if I put this bag under the wheels of the bus? Now, it was a natural curiosity, and this is happening just outside my house. My mother is waiting on the other side of the road. I get off the bus, and I quickly run and I put my bag under the wheels of the bus, and then I'm waiting, arms around my waist, to see what will happen. The bus went over. Obviously, there was nothing left. My complete bag had to be redone, but we were not, perhaps we were chided, but not scolded for it to have left a scar. We were always told, yeah, what were you trying to do? Encouraging us to be able to think differently.
Can we get to other questions, please? Yeah, let's not just. There was one young fellow waiting outside.
Good morning, sir.
Couple of more questions because we have run out of time.
Just I'll take 1 minute, sir. Sir, I'm Dr. Rabhav from GMCS 32. I'll just like to draw a comparison from one experience which you told that you took your father back to the house, your childhood house. So my grandmother, she suffered from dementia, and she, while living with us, she would often tell us that "मुझे घर जाना है." She would often referring to her childhood home in Kethil, Haryana. So one day, me and my father decided to take her back to that same house in Kethil, Haryana, and you know, that house was still there, a little renovated, but was still there. And when we took her there, she did not recognize that house. She told us that, no, this is not the house, and probably the house that she wanted to visit was just in her childhood memories. That's all. Thank you.
The mind and space translates into your work, in everyday work, in the brick and mortar work. And the sense that I get is that you're seeing the home as a process or an ecosystem where the person is a part of that ecosystem, an integral part of the ecosystem, but it's a question of creating ecosystems rather than creating homes, because if we create ecosystems, then we would not do things like displacement in a disastrous manner. Your views on that?
Final comment from Dr. Raj Murthy, I think, and because then we'll close the session. We'll listen to your response in the end. Sir, Dr. Murthy.
Besides complimenting you, I am seeing a very unique transformation in this conference of looking at mental health by what Chetana referred in the earlier one called changing the script. For example, soon we have 2 sessions on art and reading. This is a fantastic transformation from mental illness to mental health. And what you have done and what your daughter did this morning is to bring in a completely different way of looking at grief as well as housing. Thank you very much. This is brilliant. Thank you for the organizers for organizing it. Thank you.
As I said, we've been practicing for 30 odd years now. And whenever, and I'll talk specifically of a home client who comes to us, homes are extremely challenging. One, often it's a lifetime of saving that is being put in. Second, the kind of aspirations that people have from what a home could be, what a home should be, and what they want, their idea of what a home is. And it gets difficult because one has to get into their lives in order to understand how they use space. Which side of the bed do they get up from? Do they read a newspaper? Where do they drink their tea? How do they dress up? Where do they wear their shoes? If one is not able to understand all this, one is not able to design. One will be designing a generic space then, which is not unique to their needs. And therefore, we need to really immerse ourselves into their lives. And it works most of the time, then we end up with clients who are satisfied with the way that we develop their brief.
Okay, I'm sure we could have gone on forever, but we have run out of time. There has been a keen competition today between a father and a daughter. And the jury is out for those who have for those who have watched these 2 absolutely spectacular shows, the ones of you who are in this hall and the ones who are there in lecture theatre 2 before this. The jury is still out. I won't give my answer. These have been outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And I think my lesson is that we should have more of such kind of talks in our mental health conferences, rather than only listening from, quote unquote stalwarts from other people. We need to have dialogue, conversation with architects, with artists, with painters, with philosophers, with other kind of, and with, all walks of life. This was, Siddharth, this was an absolutely memorable talk. I would like to go for a standing ovation for the speaker if you don't mind. Thank you.